George and Emma. His wife is sitting there. Everybody can understand English, maybe, I don't know if you guys it's necessary welkom iedereen. Leuk dat we met een grote groep zijn. We gaan hier vanmiddag. I will start in English by the way. We are going to do today first workshop with George. We have George here for the first time. He's coming from England. Probably a lot of people will know it, but still it's nice to have George here. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much.
George is actually already more than 15 years before, around 15 years?
Around 15 years in the hobby.
Around 15 years in the hobby. Aquascaping master from England, first time in Belgium. So it's also nice that he can be here for NADA for the first time. Today we're going to start with an ADA 60P. It's not the same as the Blau that we wanted to use, but we saw this morning that it has a small broken part at the top of the glass, and we didn't see it until this morning. So it was actually not so easy, but we had to do a change. The 60P is a little bit smaller. It's 60 centimeter width length, 30 centimeters width, and 36 high. It is 60 liters. It's actually a shame that we can't use the Blau, because the Blau is a little bit longer, but also 6 centimeter width more, so it's a little bit easier to skate if you have depth. A lot of guys here, I think, I see a lot of famous faces here that come to the shop. I think almost everybody has an aquarium. I think almost everybody here. It's nice because it's a hobby. We share trying to make a beautiful scape underwater and maintain it as well as possible. So, for the rest we have a twin star light. It's an LED light. It's very good, you know why? Because we have not only white, but we have red, blue, green and white, so it's RGB. RGB is very good for the plants, it's good for the colors. You see the fish, the plants, everything has extra coloring. Especially the red is important. As we know, red is important for the plants. So twin star is a very good choice. For aquascaping, it's not too much light, it's not as ADA, the white, only white lamp. Sometimes it's a little bit too much light, this one is perfect. We have as filtration, it's not yet here because we are going to do the scape today, we're going to fill it up. But this is for the, tonight somebody is going to take it with him, or maybe if you don't have the time or possibility to take it with you, we will take it to the shop and you can pick it up. So this one is for somebody tonight. If you have, it's a little extra, 10 euros, I think, but then you have something of 500 or 600 euros that you take home. Filtration is a GBL 702. It's an external filter. It's not an E-Heim, but still it's very good. We will use today a lot of products from Tropica. Why? Because George is actually, they have very good plants. I think almost everybody here used already some Tropica plants. We're going to use the soil. This soil is actually almost the same as ADA Amazonia, only the difference is we also have. Okay, George is going to explain the Tropica thing because he's really well known with the products. I would say please enjoy it today. We have some drinks, we have some food everywhere, so just do as you are at home, just take away. Please enjoy the day. I'm going to let George give some extra information. Again, thank you George for coming, and big round of applause to
Okay, thank you so much Jan for the lovely introduction, and thank you for inviting me to the beautiful city of Antwerp. It's really great to see you all here. Thank you so much for coming. I know some of you have come a fair distance. I'm an aquascaper, so it's my job to kind of do this sort of thing. I love making beautiful aquariums, it's my absolute passion, and I'm very, very fortunate to have a career in what I absolutely love doing. So a little bit of history about me, you might not know. I used to be in the Royal Air Force for 14 years, and I did the hobby whilst I was in the Air Force, but I managed to kind of get a bit better and better whilst I was in the Air Force, and I started writing for magazines. I got into photography university, and then the time came for me to make the transition from the Air Force to become a full-time aquascaper, and that was about 4 years ago. I started writing for Practical Fish Keeping in 2006, so that's 12 years ago, and I'm still a contributor now. I answer all their kind of expert queries on aquascaping and plant aquariums. I also co-founded the UK Aquatic Plant Society in 2007, and I think it has about 25,000 members right now. We also have a very large Facebook page with, I think, nearly 30,000 likes now. What else can I tell you? Just absolutely passionate about aquascaping. Hopefully I can impart some of that passion onto you guys. Hopefully you can take some lessons away, become inspired, and maybe use some of the lessons in your own aquascapes at home, or just if you just take away anything from today, it's just the beauty of what aquascaping can be. So please feel free to take any photos, any video during the session. I'm very happy for you to do that. Please kind of tag me in and NADA, NADA, the shop as well. I'm sure they'd appreciate that. And yeah, it's all about spreading the love of aquascaping today. So, well, where should we start? It's a beautiful setup, 8860p, as Jan's introduced. I don't need to talk too much about it. He's also talked about the lights, really, really good lights. I have a good relationship with Twinstar also. I've been using their lights since they were released, and they're a proven performer, great price point, great colour rendition, and very, very good at growing plants. So there's nothing, there's nothing not to like if you kind of get what I mean. We're going to be using Tropica Soil, Tropica plants. We've got some ones that grown, we've also got some potted plants, and we've got a nano CO2 system here as well. So can I just have a show of hands who has a plant that's grown already at home? Okay, and keep your hands up if you inject CO2. Okay, keep your hands up if you think you're good at aquascaping. Okay, you're all very modest. Okay, good. Has anyone entered the ILPLC here? Please let me know. Keep your hands up if you've ranked higher than 200. Okay. Okay, I'm just getting the level of the skill so we can get ready to answer any questions. Okay, so let's get scaping, shall we? So I just want to talk a little bit about concepts of aquarium to start with. So this is a rimless aquarium. As you can see, it has no hood. And as an aquascaper and people that are into aquascaping, we tend to use rimless tanks, open top tanks. And the reason for that will become very obvious later. But the main thing I like is ease of maintenance. So when you walk past your tank and you can see something that needs doing, you can literally just get your hand in there and sort it out rather than taking off a huge canopy, which you might be reluctant to do. So maintenance is super simple. Another really important point is the extra aesthetic value. So you can obviously see into the tank from above. And that creates a completely kind of new dimension to the aquascape and a whole new vibe. You can have stuff coming out the top, you can have emergent plant growth, and yeah, it just offers so much more opportunity for creativity. So I absolutely love rimless tanks. There are a couple of disadvantages. You do experience a lot of evaporation, potentially, depending on the temperature in the room and the temperature of the aquarium water. If you have hard water, the evaporation may leave some hard water marks. I have a top tip, which I'll tell you later how to get rid of those. But I think, and also there is a risk of jumping fish, but if you choose your fish species appropriately and make sure the aquarium environment is comfortable for those fish, then you shouldn't ideally get any jumping fish. So there are minor disadvantages, and I would always recommend going for a roomless aquarium if you're an aquascaper. So the aquarium itself is very low iron glass. As you can see, it has a blue tinge to it, which indicates low iron content, and that's a really good thing because it just makes the glass super transparent, and so there's less restriction in viewing the aquascape. And with aquascaping and the hardware, for me, it's all about minimising the impact of the equipment on the aquascape. You want your eyes to be drawn to what's inside the tank and not the tank itself. And for that reason, we love to use low iron glass and clear silicon. So conversely, in a lot of marine aquariums, for instance, they will have a black background and black silicon, and the kind of aquarium is framed. But in my opinion, I always prefer clear silicone, and as you can see on here, silicone, you can hardly see it, and that's what it's all about. But please don't be. I'm here to help you guys and kind of teach you guys as much as you want to know. So any questions so far? Start there. Anyone? Any staff members?
Actually, I will ask some questions. I think a lot of people have questions about maintaining, but I think especially nutrients, lighting hours, actually the details about what's the best thing to keep your tank.
Yes. Well, I try to keep it very simple in my own tanks at home, and the methods I promote, I talk about quite a lot on my YouTube channel, etc. And they're quite consistent throughout, depending on all the setups I have. So almost always run 8 hours photo period. Depending on the power of the light, I would, and if you can adjust the light levels, I would normally start off with a lower level of light for the first few weeks and then gradually ramp it up if I wanted that super fast growth. In terms of maintenance, I usually change at least half of the water, 50% of the water once a week, and that's important in the startup phase of your aquarium because algae is very, very likely in the early stages of an aquarium's life. So those water changes really do help minimise the risk of algae. Nutrient-wise, by relying on a good quality soil like this and a good quality liquid fertiliser, you can ensure the plants are getting well fed from not only their roots from the soil, but also through their leaves from the liquid fertiliser. So for that reason, I like to, like I say, use a nice soil and then dose every day with a liquid fertiliser, a good quality liquid fertiliser. Shameless plug, I have developed my own fertiliser called the Aquascape Complete Liquid Plant Food, very similar to the Tropica Specialised. It contains all of the nutrients that you need in an ideal ratio, so no need to, for several bottles, it's all in one handy bottle. Dose a little bit of that every day, change a lot of the water every week, and that, for me personally, ensures that the plants never go hungry, they're super healthy, and healthy plants mean less hungry. So it's quite a simple method. There's no need for test kits because the huge water change, 50% water change, resets all the nutrient levels, and by dosing a little bit every day, you're ensuring the plants are getting enough food through their leaves. Hopefully that makes sense to everyone. That's kind of my methodology. It's based on the EI principle, some of you may have heard of, the estimated index, but it's simplified by using a commercial liquid product.
And you're only using tap water, right?
I only use tap water. My tap water comes out my tap at about 350 to 400 TDS. I don't know if you guys know what that means. I don't test for pH, I don't test for KH or GH. I just happen to know what the TDS value is. But it's my own personal kind of methodology, but I don't need test kits because the big water changes, the adding of a little bit of the fertiliser every day, the healthy plant growth means that you should have to test for your water. The fish will be happy because the plants are happy, basically. CO2 is a different story. If we get time, I'll go into CO2 later on. It is a complex topic. I could do a couple of hours on CO2 on its own, but I will, if I get time later, I'll just touch on CO2. But hopefully I'll be available at the end, and if you want any sort of personal kind of one-on-one advice about anything, then hopefully I can help you out as well. Okay. So, let's start scaping. Right. So Tropica Soil, 9 litre bag. I think this retails in NADA for about €45. Is that right? Yeah?
I'm sorry.
How much? €45 or so?
This one is in Belgium, 41 or 42 euros.
So it sounds relatively expensive if you compare it to like a gravel or a sand, but there's huge advantages. So it will feed the plant roots. It doesn't need rinsing, like if you buy a standard sand or gravel, you need to rinse it thoroughly, otherwise you'll get cloudy water. It doesn't need rinsing. It helps to actually lower the pH slightly, buffer the pH, and it just basically gives a really ideal home for the plant roots. It has a really cool thing called cation exchange capacity at a high CEC, and what that means in layman's terms is it takes in nutrients from the water column, locks it into the soil, and then makes those nutrients available to the plant roots. So in conjunction with using a decent liquid fertiliser, any kind of excess nutrients can be absorbed also by the soil, and the plant roots will use it. So really good product. I think we'll only need one bag for this aquarium today. You can use bacterial products to start off your aquarium, but by planting really heavily with live plants, the bacteria colonies will quite quickly establish. So in my experience and my own kind of methodologies, I don't often use bacterial starters personally. They are an optional extra. They certainly do no harm, and they could speed up the process, the kind of process of establishing like an equilibrium in the aquarium, but they're not necessary. So like I said, no need to rinse it, just pour it straight in. And then try and get it quite flat as you can at the front, and then ideally you might want to have it sloping slightly to the rear. You can use your fingers, but the soil tends to get under your nails. How flat's that at the front? I can't really tell from here. I'll tidy it up later because we're going to be adjusting the soil with the hardscape soon. So that's the soil in place. Any questions on the soil? There are lots of soils available. They all do a very similar job, like I said. Nutrients for the plant roots. They don't need rinsing. The main difference is, I would say, ADA, Aquasoil, Amazonia is the rich ammonia spike. Some of you may have experienced this already. So for that reason, it's really important to monitor your ammonia and nitrite levels before you have any livestock. But with the large frequent water changes, in a week or two, those ammonia levels should reach 0, and you can safely add your livestock. Also, the ammonia spike is helpful if you have a new filter for establishing beneficial bacteria. Okay. Soil in, now we're going to do one of my favourite parts of aquascaping, and that's the hardscaping process. So that's the use of wood and or rocks. The style of aquascape we're doing today is based on the Nature Aquarium principles from Takeshi Amano. I'm sure most of you have heard of the legend. He sadly passed away 3 years ago. But his legend lives on, and there are hundreds of thousands of guys girls that love the Nature Aquarium philosophy, and I am one of them. In fact, a bit of a story. I got into planted tanks. I kept my first aquarium in 2003. I've always kind of liked nature, so I thought a planted aquarium would be a good thing to do. And then I bought the Nature Aquarium World Book 1, I think in 2004. And that absolutely changed my life. It sounds quite dramatic, but when I opened the book, it was like an epiphany. Do you guys know what an epiphany is? It's like you see the light. And I knew that was the direction that I wanted to take my hobby, and I became quite obsessed, trying to kind of emulate the great works of Takeshi Amano. And that's pretty much why I'm here today. Without him, without that book, I wouldn't have been so inspired, and I wouldn't be on the journey that I'm on right now. So we are going to be doing the Nature Aquarium style aquascape, and the basic philosophy is transferring a essence of nature from outside and transferring that into your aquarium. I'm guessing most of you may have heard of this concept already, and we're using natural materials, so we're using wood and rocks, we're using live plants, and not necessarily copying a direct kind of scene from a landscape, but using, like I said, an essence of nature. In fact, if you look behind you right now on that TV, there's a classic kind of islandscape that I did a year or so ago, and it's not copying, like you wouldn't see that in nature, but it looks natural, right? It's an essence of nature, and that is a classic example of how you can use the Nature Aquarium principles. Okay, hardscape, excuse me, one moment. Okay, I'm very, very fortunate to have access to some of the best hardscaping materials I've experienced in the retailer. And regular customers to NADA will no doubt have seen their little courtyard full of awesome hardscape materials. So I was like a kid in a sweet shop. I don't know if you guys have heard that expression, but I was super excited because there's all this beautiful hardscape to choose from. And it was almost a little bit overwhelming for me because there is so much and you're like, ugh. So actually we've grabbed loads, and it's a really good kind of lesson there. If you have the budget, then I would always recommend buying as much hardscape as you can, if it's good quality, and just kind of hoard it and use it. And every time you do a new aquascape, you'll have options. You'll have more choice, and more choice means more kind of room for creativity. And yeah, it's just worthwhile investing in decent hardscape if you can. One of my jobs that I did with practical fish keeping was actually, I used to review shops. So I used to go around the UK, and I'm a photographer and a journalist as well. So I used to go when I went to the shop, most people would go straight to like the fish section, but I used to go straight to the hardscape section and kind of grab the best bits of hardscape that I could. So as you can see, this is beautiful wood. This is called river wood, and we're talking, for the larger pieces, we're talking kind of 50 to 80 euros from NADA, which I think is really good value. It is stunning. It may try to float when we fill with water, so I am going to kind of bury the wood in the soil and then put a stone on top as well, just to hopefully make sure it doesn't float. I have had a couple of, Emma will tell you, I've had a couple of dramas with floating wood, which is really annoying because part of what I was doing with the magazines was step-by-step photographs. So if you can imagine, the camera's on a tripod, and then every step I would take a picture, and then by the end of the process I would fill with water, and then the wood, on this one occasion, floated, and then it ripped all the soil up, all the plants up, and obviously all those photos were then absolutely useless because it wouldn't look the same. Do you know what I mean? So, top tip: make sure your wood sinks. So you can pre-soak it. The ideal solution is to keep it soaking, maybe in a big water container in your garden. You could use your bath if you wanted. I don't think Emma will let me do that. But yeah, pre-soak it. Different woods take different amounts of time to become saturated enough to sink, but within a couple of weeks usually it's normally fine. We haven't got time to soak it today, so I am going to just hopefully insert it, weigh it down, and then hopefully it won't float. Okay. So now it's a case of, I am aquascaping backwards. I will come to the front of the tank in a moment just to make sure I'm not making a real kind of mess of it. I'm going to kind of just wedge that as much as I can down to the bottom of the aquarium, and then we can kind of half cover it like so. And then we have another beautiful piece here. So hardscape is like I always relate it to the backbone of the aquascape. It's like a skeleton. Start off with a really strong hardscape, then more than likely you'll create a strong aquascape, because by using live plants attached to your hardscape or in the soil, obviously. If you think about a human being, we have a skeleton, and then attached to the skeleton are your muscles, you have your blood circulating, and actually it's a little bit like an aquascape. The hardscape is like the skeleton, and then the plant and the water, they're like the muscles and the blood. And if you start off with a really strong hardscape, really strong skeleton, then you're going to likely have a very strong aquascape or a strong human being. So, hardscape, skeleton. I'm just going to come to the front right now and see how that looks. great already, right?
Crazy wood.
The
hardest
we're limited a little bit by the lighting. So, interesting fun fact about the Twin Star, they do an SP version which doesn't have the legs and you can actually suspend it. So that obviously gives you opportunity to adjust the height. In fact, you can adjust the height on here as well. They do, this is the I think this is the SA version. SA, the model is the S, the A means it's adjustable, and there is a standard S version which just has a fixed leg. It's actually a little bit shorter than that. But what I'm saying is, at the moment, the light has to be all the way forward to allow for this. So what I'm going to try and do is actually, ideally you want the light halfway, probably, depending on your plant choice, but for today, ideally you want it halfway forward and back. So I'm just going to take that off, move the wood. And then, that's better. So we do have some smaller pieces of wood, because one piece on its own, it looks great, but I think we could add a little bit more detail, a little bit more interest. And this process, you know, take as long as you like, because it's really important to get it right, okay? Like I said, it's the backbone of the aquascape. There's no point rushing it. You've got a dry tank, a dry soil, you're not making a mess. Just play. It's like sculpture. They'll use tiny, tiny pieces of wood, tiny rocks, glue them together, and they'll create these really elaborate kind of hardscape structures. The Indonesians are kind of very good at it, and they kind of almost revolutionised a new style of aquascaping. So if that's something that interests you, just look it up on Google, you know, Indonesian style aquascaping, and you'll see some absolutely stunning works. I'm a bit more of a simple creature. I like to use just a couple of nice big pieces of hardscape to get the impact. And this is more akin to the classic Nature Aquarium style, I would say. And that's, you know, that's where my heart is, that's where my background comes from. It's from the old school kind of classic Amano works. Okay, so we have, this is a little bit pale. It probably will, once the wood is soaked after a couple of weeks or so, they probably will look identical. But for today, I'll use this piece here, I think, because it does look much more kind of matching with this piece here. So it's worth talking about composition. Composition is how everything appears in the aquarium. And we're thinking about balance, aesthetic balance, focal points. So any photographers out there might have heard of the rule of thirds. So it's a really kind of nice guideline to help you position your focal point. So if you imagine the aquarium length, this is 60 centimetres. If you imagine positioning your main focal point 2/3 or 1/3 of the way along, that's a nice aesthetic balance. It's not quite in keeping with what we've got here, but it's just a nice guideline to use. Rule of thirds, very simple, very effective way to position your focal point. So now I'm just kind of playing around with this second piece here, just to almost make it look like it's one big piece. Now I think it's a little bit too weighted over to the left now, so I'm going to try and move the whole thing over to the right, and that will hopefully create something in the way. That will create hopefully a better aesthetic balance. So we'll just do that right now. Move the whole tank. Okay, I'm happy with that. So you guys are all in a raffle, right? So you've got your tickets and you've got the potential to win this. I'm hoping you don't sort of lock this in the car, okay? You might have to kind of pack it out with some bubble wrap. But whoever wins it, if they come to see me afterwards, and then I'll take you through what I would do to maintain it in the long term, and then maybe we can exchange email, and you can send me some update photos, and I can, you know, help you guys out when it's your tank. Maybe come over to Antwerp again and film it. It'd be awesome. By the way, how many from Antwerp people? Yeah, awesome 50. We Emma and I we came on the Friday, and you had this like street food festival on, which is a beer. Wow. Such good beer over here. So, I'm quite happy with that. And that's a real kind of good example of how using good quality materials, you can create something really quite stunning very quickly. You know, that's taken me, what, 5-10 minutes to do, and that's because I've had some great materials to work with. So, I'm just going to, as a safety precaution, I'm just going to put a stone, just to wedge it down, and then we can probably cover the stone with soil or plants to kind of disguise it. But actually, it's a nice stone. You could also have it on display if you wanted to. Okay, so this secondary piece here is kind of locked in now to that, which is very handy. I did bring some cable ties. So zip ties to kind of tie it together if I needed to. But I'm fairly confident that is going to be okay. Now, I'm actually quite tempted to kind of have this stone a little bit on display. It's quite a nice piece. Is this Suyu? Suyu stone?
I think so, yeah.
Similar, isn't it, right?
Yeah.
So, I think that's okay. Find out later.
But do you think, George, it's necessary to use a rock because the wood is already heavy? I don't know.
We tried earlier and it was floating, wasn't it?
Also, this big piece, this one was also close.
I'd rather not risk it. Trust me.
I got a question. What's the right depth for the soil?
There is no optimum depth really. It's kind of what works for you aesthetically. I've grown plants in kind of, you know, almost 1 centimetre, and I've seen, you know, 60 centimetre deep tanks, soil all the way up there.
No, the reason why I ask is I've been experimenting with soil for some time now, and well, if you have too much soil, it tends to algae up in the soil.
Oh, okay. That'll be a lighting issue. Obviously, algae needs light, so maybe you have a lot of ambient light hitting the
It's
side.
in the center of a room, a very light room.
Okay.
And
So it's a bright room, right?
yeah.
Yeah. That's where you get an algae in the soil. Cyanobacteria is very common in soil, yeah, because all cyanobacteria, you guys heard of cyanobacteria, blue-green, slime algae, always starts in the substrate, okay, and it's very often triggered by excess natural light. Other conditions will kind of trigger it, so low nitrogen, low levels of circulation, excess organic waste accumulation, lots of things. But yeah, lighting is a really great thing for plants, but it's also a really great thing for algae. So you need to just focus on like growing the healthiest plants you can, and that's the best defence against algae, in my experience.
George, I'm going to ask a question about blue algae, the bacteria, because I think everybody here has sometimes, maybe in one tank, but sometimes you have it. Do you have some tips and tricks to get rid of them?
Yeah, I mean, prevention is always better than cure, so stop it from happening in the first place is the best thing. But if you have it and you need to get rid of it, a really effective method is the 72-hour blackout, because it's not actually an algae, it's a bacteria. It's a photosynthetic bacteria, which means it needs light to grow. So if you cut the light off, it just literally dies off, and it dies off quite quickly. But it's important that you remove as much of it as you can before the blackout, because when it dies, it's just going to turn into organic waste, and that's a bad thing. And then after the blackout, I would always do like a big water change and clean your filter as well, just as a kind of precaution to help stop it from reoccurring. But you need to address the reason you're getting it in the first place, rather than just getting rid of the problem. If you don't get rid of the cause, then it will just come back again.
So basically what you would suggest for a aquarium standing in a very lighted room is to tape off the bottom part of the aquarium.
It's a really good idea. I've done it myself. So you can get some, you know, a nice tape if you can, so it doesn't look ugly. So like a black insulation tape maybe, and then yeah, just cover up this area here, and that's going to block any light from hitting this bit, and hopefully prevent you from getting your cyanobacteria. But it is a real problem. I stripped, when I first started the hobby, I used to get it quite frequently, and the only way I could get rid of it was to strip the whole tank down and start from scratch. It was almost like soul destroying. It almost made me stop the hobby. But thankfully I persevered. I realised what was causing it in the first place and addressed those issues, and I've never had it since. That's a lie. I have tiny little bits now and again, and I maintain some aquariums for clients and retailers, and they experience it. But it's all about, the biggest thing is preventing too much light from hitting here, and then circulation, and then dosing enough nitrates. One of the big things is minimising the accumulation of the organic waste. So you need to do big water changes, in my opinion, and filter relatively clean, and that will help prevent this waste organics, which is one of the biggest triggers of algae, nuisance algae, whether it's cyanobacteria or other types of algae. Does that make sense to everyone? Am I speaking too quickly? I'm sorry, I don't speak Dutch, I'm afraid. I say document, thank you, guys. Okay, so that's the hardscape in place. Is there any questions? Yeah?
Do you think everybody knows that this kind of stones give chalk
Limestone.
Yeah. The thing is, we have in Belgium, our tap water in Antwerp is like 550 EDS.
That's very hard, right?
In Brussels, it's sometimes even double.
Wow, that's like seawater.
A lot chalk into the water.
Yeah.
So what we do in Belgium, we do water changes, but we do 50% tap water and 50% osmosis.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
So, but this kind of rock, it will constantly give the chalk.
It does. Yeah, it does. It's a limestone product, so especially if you're injecting CO2 and you have acidic water, that is going to dissolve that stone very, very slowly, and consequently your TDS is going to go up. But with the big water changes, like I recommend, the 50% water change once a week, that fluctuation is going to be quite minimal. So you'll get a slight rise, and then you'll do your water change, it's going to go down again, and so it's going to be like a gentle kind of wave. Whereas if you only did, a 10% every 2 weeks, then that change is going to be more significant.
And I think a lot of people have also problems with blackbeard algae. Everybody knows it. The thing is, a lot of people are afraid to use this kind of stone because you have the fluctuating chalk level.
Yeah.
So the thing is, a lot of people think here, and I also think that if you have fluctuations, that you get more blackbeard algae because of this thing.
Yeah, I mean the blackbeard algae issue, I could go and talk about that for 2 hours, and I'm not going to do that. Blackbeard algae, I think fluctuations is a contributing factor, but I think it's only a relatively small one. The biggest one is organic waste. So if you keep your aquarium relatively clean, if you keep your filter quite clean, if you keep your substrate relatively clean, and you can't vacuum it because it's fully planted usually, but what I do is just wave my hand gently above the soil. That lifts up any waste organics, and then you can siphon that out as part of your water change. So the combination of the large water changes, good maintenance habits, you're going to avoid that accumulation of waste organics, and that's going to help prevent the EVA. I always recommend a large shrimp population if you can. You've obviously got the fish that are appropriate. Some fish will eat the shrimp. But a large population of Marley shrimp, Caridina multidentata, and Neocaridina, so your cherry shrimp, we call them in the UK. They're constantly grazing the surfaces. They might not even be eating the algae, but they're helping to prevent the algae from taking hold, because they're constantly grazing the surfaces, so hopefully that prevents the algae from occurring in the first place. Okay, so hardscape's done. We are now ready to plant. So we've got a really nice selection of Tropica 1-2 grow here. I'll just talk about tissue culture plants for a moment. I think it's a really important topic, and I really love tissue culture plants, basically. They're guaranteed to be free from algae, free from snails, free from pesticides, and actually they represent really good value for money. So it looks like it is a small pot, right? But there's so many plants in there. So if you look at that kind of mat of root structure there, there's probably about 300 individual plants in this one pot. And if you have the patience, you can actually split it up so many times. You could actually probably plant this whole aquarium with just that one pot if you were patient enough and you separated the individual kind of blades. Okay, I'm not going to do that today. That's really boring. I have done it. You guys may have heard of a plant called Micranthemum Monte Carlo, and I called it the One Pot Challenge. And I had an aquarium very similar to this. And I challenged myself to grow in a complete carpet of the Monte Carlo with just one pot. So I spent about 6 hours individually taking apart each tiny little stem. It was like an exercise in Zen Buddhism. I had some music on and I was just... and then I painstakingly planted with pincettes each tiny stem. I filled up the whole substrate, and then within sort of 10 weeks, 6 to 10 weeks, I had a beautiful full carpet. So yeah, I won the challenge, if you like. So you can do that, and that, that's if you're on a tight budget and you have the time, then you can make one of these pots go a long way. So that's the advantages of tissue culture. You get a lot for your money, guaranteed to be free from snails, pest snails, algae, pesticides, disease. The Tropica tissue culture are even more special because they have a paint-tinted lid here, which is breathable, but it doesn't let the liquid media out. The media that the plants are grown in is most of the species is actually a liquid, so it's really easy to prepare. Other companies, they have quite a thick jelly, which you may have experienced, and actually that takes a little bit more time to kind of prepare. And so, yeah, the advantages of the Tropica, the liquid media, super easy to prepare, and this lid here, really easy to peel off. So I'm just going to go behind the sink here. I'll show you how we prepare a pot. So like a stone, you just take the lid off. You can remove the whole pot in one clump, like so. Pull that away. So this is like a super nutrient-rich liquid. It's got growth hormones and etc. And it's quite important that we rinse off that as much as we can because that can trigger algae. So just get your whole pot in one go. Put it in a bucket of water, or in this case my sink, and then just gently squeeze the plant. That's going to get rid of all of that liquid media. And then top tip for preparing the Eleocharis in particular. So this is Eleocharis acicularis mini. It's a mini hair grass, as you can see. And real top tip, if you kind of tear it at one end, you can hopefully unravel it. So it's almost like one long carpet. I didn't quite get that, but that's no problem. So now we have that, we can quite easily, I'll just do this at the front so you guys can see. Sorry about dripping everywhere. So then we, like I said earlier, you can separate that as many times as you like. I'm not going to spend too long doing it. We've got quite a lot of plants here, so that's no problem. So about 2 centimetres or so, you can just tear off your individual portions and then just repeat. Really easy. Would you like to come and help? Which one is again? So very talented Wabi Kuza, aquascaper, and you've met Philippe, my friend from Portugal, right? And now you've met me. You know Aquaflora, right? You've got the Aquascaping mix, might as well go around and show you to Esther. Yes. Esther as well. Cool. So yeah, can you just help out and just do what I'm doing as well? That'd be brilliant. Thank you for your help. So just keep repeating that process, and then sometimes I'll have a planting tray, like a tea tray. You guys know what I mean by a tea tray? And then you can put them on the tray, and you can balance the tray on here, and that makes the process easier as well. So this is what we call a carpeting plant, which means it sends out runners and then the shoots come up, and eventually you'll get a solid, really lush green lawn, like a grass lawn, if that makes sense. It's quite an easy plant. It does need a relative moderate lighting, I would say, and does much better with CO2 injection. You can get away without CO2 injection, but I would definitely recommend it. Yes, that'd be awesome, please. Yeah, makes my job easier. There you go. Okay, so my glamorous assistant's going to prep the plants for me while I plant, so that's a really good bit of teamwork there. So, Aquascape's best friend, and worth investing in a decent pair of pinsets or tweezers. These are from America, by a company called Nature Aquarium. Kindly sent them over about 4 years ago. I did promise to review them for my YouTube channel. I haven't done it yet, sorry. But I'm just going to do, that's going to be called like the ultimate long-term review. I've been using these for 4 years and they still work really well. So shout out to Nature Aquarium. Okay, so to plant, simply grab our portion in our pinsets like so. Roots obviously going towards the bottom. And then plant dry into the dry soil. Some people like to fill up a little bit of water, but actually I find it much less messy and I get less floaters by planting dry. So just going to pop that at the front. It is a 4-gram plant. It's not going to get much taller than that. So we plant it at the front of the aquarium. And then what I like to do to ensure even coverage is to put one portion all the way to the right, one portion all the way to the left, one portion in the centre, and then constantly halve it each time, and then you ensure you get a really kind of even coverage. And don't worry if the plant looks a little bit sorry for itself. It has been grown in like a very tight kind of pot, and so it kind of gets a little bit deformed. But after a couple of days with good lighting, etc., the plant will straighten itself out and it will look great in no time. How many people are watching?
200 plus.
200 plus people are watching. Yeah. Woo. And you guys thanks to everyone that's watching. I hope you're enjoying the video. Give me a thumbs up if you are, and it'd be really great if you could share it as well. That'd be awesome. So this is a really important kind of process, taking your time. I'm doing this relatively quickly. If I was doing this at home, I'd probably, do it much more kind of slowly and more relaxed, have some music on in the background, have a nice cup of tea, and just enjoy the process. It's a creative process. It's, it's a hobby. You should really kind of, really enjoy it, learn to enjoy it. And I was chatting with someone yesterday about the maintenance. And if you can learn to enjoy the maintenance side of things, then that's what really sets apart a standard hobbyist from a decent aquascaper. Because if you can maintain your aquarium, constantly, set aside 1 or 2 hours every week or however long you need, dedicate that time slot in the week to maintaining your aquarium, learn to enjoy the process, and you'll just be a much better aquascaper in the long run. So we're going to be quite heavily planted with the hair grass, which is good. And it's really important, it's a really good kind of point, is it's really important to plant as heavy as you can from the outset. So you may think, I've spent hundreds and thousands, maybe €1,000 or so on your aquarium system. And people will tend to I can save some money by only buying a few plants. That's actually a recipe for disaster, because what will happen is there's not enough plants to kind of combat the algae in the early stages of an aquarium's life. In the first couple of 3 weeks, algae is really kind of trying to take over the tank, and it's only by planting heavily, ideally with some fast growers and healthy plants. So buy good quality plants, Tropica are great, but they're not going to be great if they've been in a shop that doesn't look after the plants properly, or they're close to the end of their life. So maybe have a speak with your shop owner, and then ask when they get their fresh delivery from Tropica, whoever they get their plants from, and then if you make sure you get to the shop as they're getting their plants the same day, then you can guarantee those plants are going to be super fresh, super healthy, and that's going to give you the best chance of success in the early stages of the aquarium. So, ideally you want to be covering as much of the soil as possible with plants. I'm very lucky, obviously, I've got access to pretty much any plant I want in Nada. But don't be shy. Consider investing a fair amount of money in the plants in the setup stage of your aquascape, because you'll thank me in the long run, because you won't get algae, and your aquascape will look really nice right from day one, and you can enjoy it rather than struggling with algae. We talk about algae a lot, and the reason is because it's the #1 reason people give the hobby up. A lot of people will never go back to fish keeping because they had so much algae. So I really like to hammer the point. Really like to make the point how to prevent algae. And prevention, like I said, is always better than cure. Always easier to prevent algae from happening in the first place versus trying to cure it once you've got it. You've all had algae, right? Hands up who's had algae before. Anyone not had algae?
I burned away, so I don't have algae.
Yeah, like I say, algae is a nightmare for a lot of people, and it's not hard to prevent. It's invest in good plants, lots of plants, and think about your methodology. Have enough light to grow the plants, but not too much light. Too much light will give you algae. If the plants can't use that amount of light, then algae will. So a good rule of thumb I tend to go for is if you have an adjustable light, then think about the most kind of demanding plant, the hardest plant to grow in the tank. Have just enough light for that plant, and then all the easier plants will definitely be fine. If you go for deliberately loads and loads of light, then trust me, especially if you're a bit of a beginner, you will run into algae at some point. The more light you have, the more CO2 you need, the more nutrients you need, the more circulation you need, the more water changes you need to do. So for beginners especially, I would always suggest starting off with easy plants, starting off with relatively low levels of light. I would still recommend CO2 if you can, because CO2 is really, really great at promoting healthy plant growth. So a top tip when you're planting, sometimes when you take your pinsets out of the soil, the plant will want to come away with it. So what I like to do is just pop it in, and then just place a finger gently on the plant, take your tweezers out, and then it will stay there, no problem. So I want to give a shout out to my German aquascaping friend Yuri's, who I saw doing this method with the dry soil. I used to always fill up the water to cover the soil, then plant, but this method is so much easier, so much cleaner, and like I said, when you fill with water at the end, hopefully you won't have any floating plants, or floating words for that matter. So it's starting to kind of take shape already. You can see the foreground slowly filling up. But we have some, you have your kit with walk-in sets like this? Do you have some walk-in sets like this?
Yeah, is it on with the normal tip? Or?
Yeah, just a straight tip. Would you like to help plant as well? Yeah. So, yeah, two bits. If we just sort of fill in the gaps around here, is that okay?
Yes.
So we'll kind of plant as heavy as we can. So this size aquarium is a really nice size. It gives you opportunity to stock a good kind of variety of fish, but it's not too big that it's it doesn't take too long to maintain, not too expensive to buy to start with or maintain. So something like this size, 60 centimetre, I would kind of recommend as a beginner tank. Smaller tanks are cheaper. They're going to be cheaper to run, cheaper to maintain, and cheaper to buy to start with. But the smaller tank you have, the more kind of less room for error you have, because everything happens quicker. So temperature fluctuates more, water chemistry changes more, you're going to get more evaporation, it's going to have more influence on the whole system. So, by all means go for a nano aquarium, but just bear in mind, it isn't so kind of stable as a larger aquarium.
So George, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
So your maintenance scheme that you explained,
Yeah.
how long can you maintain the tank in aquarium?
Definitely. So I mean the Nature Aquarium Gallery in Japan, I think there's an Aquascape there that's 15, 20 years running. Yeah. So if you're performing regular maintenance, and then you may need to do a big overhaul, but you still maybe keep the same substrate. I know guys that have had the same aqua soil, similar to this, for 15 years. Yeah. It turns to a mud, it turns to a sludge, so it's very, if you want to take plants out or change your hardscape, it will cause a massive cloud of water. But you can maintain a part of the aquarium definitely. Yeah. Me personally, I tend to aquascape quite frequently because it's my job and I like to make new content for my YouTube and magazines, etc. But I've run my longest aquascape was 3 years, and that I could have run it for longer, but I just kind of got caught to try new things. So yeah, you can maintain an aquascape definitely. And plant choice is really important. So I'm a really big fan of really easy, slow-growing plants because they're low maintenance. So things like Cryptocoroini, Microsorum, Anubias, Bucophalandra, these are all I'm kind of quite sort of well known now for using these plants a lot in my aquascapes, and that's because they are low maintenance, but they're still beautiful. You don't need necessarily to have the most kind of hard, tricky, difficult plants to create something beautiful. You can use really, really easy, basic plants. If we leave this now, because I'll put some Cryptocoroini there, so it's going to be shaded. Yeah. Nice. Doing a good job, mate. Thank you.
Welcome.
50-50. I was at 40 now. 24. Oh, 24. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, nice. It's at 2.8. Yeah. Okay, I think we're there with the planting. Thank you so much for helping. Does anybody want any free plants? Okay. I'll get a little bag for you later. Is that okay?
Yeah.
George, do you prefer dry storage?
No. No. So the man here just asked about dry start method. So the dry start method is planting like we are now, and you kind of mist the plants to stop them from drying out. Cover your tank with cling film or a piece of glass so you wouldn't fill it with water. and then the plants would grow without water, because a lot of plants are semi-aquatic. They don't actually need to be underwater to grow. And the idea is you can kind of mature the aquascape and then fill it with water, and that is a method that some people use. I don't bother with it because the plants. So this is a quite complex topic, but basically, I don't know if you guys know, but about 95% of aquarium plants in the hobby actually grow out of water in nature, right? And it's during the flood seasons, the rainy seasons, they get covered in water, and then they actually have to adapt quite considerably. Some species have to adapt more than others, and it's during this adaptation phase, going from underwater growth to out of water growth, or vice versa, a lot of plants really kind of struggle. They use a lot of their nutrients up, and some of them will die off, and that's basically what's happening with the dry start method. So actually tissue culture plants aren't, especially in the liquid medium, are actually in their submerged form already. Okay, so they've adapted already to underwater growth. So by going dry start method, that plant's got to readapt. Does that make sense? To out of water growth. So it's going to have a hard time basically. So what I like to do is just plant like I am, fill with water, get your CO2 levels right, get your lighting right, nutrients, water changes. The plants will thrive, and there's actually, I don't see any advantage to the dry start method. I've tried it myself, so I can speak with experience. So that's why I never do it. There are some really cool things, like when I talk about Yuri's again, he called it the salt bay method. You know, he sprinkled, he actually chopped up a load of Monte Carlo, sprinkled it all over the soil, and actually it took hold just by sprinkling it.
And the moss with the yogurt?
Yeah, you can, it's like it's paint.
Yeah.
So what I did it a few years ago, I think I was one of the first people to try it, was blend yogurt and water and moss in a blender, whisk it all up so you get this paste, and then you can paint the moss on the wood, dry start then, and then the moss really fixes itself really well.
Yeah.
So that is one example where you might want to use the dry start, but in general, I wouldn't bother. And that's a long answer, but it's quite a complex topic, right? Okay, so we've planted our Heliocaris mini. Now it's time to mix it up a bit with some Helanthium tantalum. Okay, this used to be called, anyone know? Pop quiz? No? No, Echinodorus tantalus. Okay, you've heard, most people have heard of that. Microsword, dwarf chainsword. They reclassified it to Helanthium tantalum. Some plant suppliers will still call it Echinodorus tantalus. This is the green variety, so some varieties will actually go on a little bit red. The centre of the leaf turns like a nice red colour, but this won't, it stays like a nice bright green. So we'll prepare it exactly the same way as before. Yeah, I've only got one part of that, that's no problem. So just remove the whole clump like so, pour away your medium, give it a rinse, give it a nice squeeze, and then like before, you just kind of unwrap it, like so. You can see it's been growing in the pot, you know, it's formed a carpet inside the pot already, and now it's just a case of separating those portions. You don't have to do every single, you can see there's two plants, can you see that? There's a plant there and a plant there. You could separate them individually like so, or you can, if you're a bit lazy, you can kind of join them together and then plant them like that. So I'm going to do that today because we are on a bit of a time limit, unfortunately. So this is actually quite a fast grower with decent light and CO2 injection. This can quickly, completely cover your soil in a matter of weeks. So it does need maintaining, it will need thinning out occasionally, but it is a beautiful plant. And what I like to do with my carpeting plants at the front of the aquarium is I deliberately mix up the species. So rather than having one solid kind of mat that's quite kind of, I wouldn't say boring, but kind of, boring. It's nice to kind of intermix it with different species, and that creates this kind of more naturalistic vibe, and that's what we're going for today. We're going for a nature aquarium, and the kind of more textures, the more complex those textures are, the kind of more natural it looks. You know, you don't often find in nature, you know, a complete, you know, kind of lawn. You know, you might find it in the garden, but that's not kind of nature. So it's always nice to mix up the species. So same as before, grab your plant, make sure the roots are at the bottom, and then in you go. And then just to stop it from coming out again, just pop your finger on the top, and then repeat the process. Thank you, Dan. So you could just plant in between.
Isn't this one of the plants that it benefits to have a curved instead of tweezers?
I've never used curved tweezers really. I do have a set, but I normally use them just to kind of take stuff out of the aquarium. I always use straight.
Yeah, for long rooted plants, I usually use a curved one.
Okay.
You can take the bottom of the root and really push it
Okay.
in a curved motion.
Put your money where your mouth is, William. No pressure.
No, not at all. If you're really watching, then
Yeah.
you'll probably get yelled at.
I'm always interested in learning new techniques. So
Can I put it wherever I want?
yeah, in between the hair grass. Yeah. Anywhere you want.
The benefit is if you push it under, you can keep it up steady.
There you go. I've learned something today.
No, that's the first set of tweezers Jan told me to buy. He
Okay.
said the right ones are only good for straight ones,
Yeah.
are good, decent for stem plants. But if you want to have plants with long roots, a curved one makes it easier.
Does?
You really can push them under the rocks
Yeah,
or
yeah.
under the soil.
So I find this process very therapeutic. It's almost like hypnosis, like self-hypnosis. You're doing something over and over again. It's really quite relaxing. You might want to put some music on, like I said, in the background. So any other questions from anyone?
Yeah, maybe about the plants. I have an aquarium now for 6 months,
Okay.
and sometimes I see, I don't know the name of the plant, but plants looking a bit worse. And yeah, you can fix it with, with maintaining your tank really good. But sometimes I think that is it better to just put it out and buy a new one and put the same type at the same place? Or
Yeah, it depends on the problem with the plant. So is it kind of just dying or going pale or
Yeah,
holes in
so-
it? Or?
I thought it was dying, but then it was going good again, but now it's dying again.
Are you injecting CO2?
I did it with how do you say it?
Liquid?
Like liquids.
Okay.
But now the tank is doing okay, just that one kind of plant. So
Do you know the plant name or not?
no, sorry.
Get a picture of it, a photo?
Maybe. Because you were talking that some scapes lived for 15 years, it's with the same plant?
Yeah, so things like Anubias, Microsorums, Cryptocorini, slow-growing plants like that, very, very low maintenance, and you will need to thin them out occasionally.
So this kind of thing always design.
Okay, looks like Pretty pale, isn't it?
Yeah.
It looks like Microcranthanum ambrosum. Your Staragini's doing well.
Yeah.
Yeah? Nice state.
Yeah.
I would actually just get rid of it.
Yeah.
I don't think it adds much to the aquascape anyway.
And
But you-
put in a red plant, is it easier or harder to maintain?
Red plants generally need more light, but not all the time. You can get, tropical lilies that are red, they're very easy. Some Altinantharas are very easy as well. But with red plants, the most important thing is where you put it in the aquarium, because it's a really high impact colour. So you want to think about using that as a focal point. Does that make sense? Yeah, so where your eyes naturally drawn to, that's the focal point. And because it's red, your eyes are going to be looking at that. So just consider carefully where you place it in the aquarium. So we talked about the rule of thirds earlier. So you might want to put it about a third of the way along in the aquascape. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not in front.
Not right in the middle.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the foreground planted. Do you have a, where's the yam? Is it? Stay here. You did this. So just to stop the plants from drying out, it's a really good idea to mist them occasionally. Try to avoid the front glass, which I failed at already. It's okay, I'll use this. Okay, so foreground's in, let's do the mid-ground now. So, one of my favourite plants.
Someone's asking you if this is a fake live stream.
Fake?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, how can you fake a live stream?
I have no idea how to fake a live stream, but there you go.
You okay with that? Do you want to?
Maybe I can
Just
can you adjust it?
hold it like, and then if you want to adjust it up and down, you hold this trigger at the same time.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank
so,
you.
Oh, sorry, there. Has Jerome just gone to the?
Thanks. Perfect.
Okay. Okay, so one of my favourite plants of all time, Cryptocorini Wenditii green. Now comes in a tissue culture now from Tropica. And actually, this is in the jelly type, which I talked about before. It's not the liquid. But luckily, it just comes out super simple like that. So the jelly's kind of left in the pot, and I've got the plants there. But it's still a good idea to kind of rinse them. So just give it a gentle massage in the water. Flick off the excess. And then we have sort of distinct portions already. Like so, you can separate it even more if you wanted to.
Perfect.
And the more you separate it, the more coverage you'll get and kind of the better value for money. So, you know, going back to the story about the Monte Carlo, you know, you can potentially plant a whole tank with one pot. So I'm going to separate that just a couple of times. But this is super small. So tissue culture plants are basically baby plants. They're like test tube babies. So they're just a very, very young plant. And because of that, they really need kind of looking after. If you think about a baby, it needs feeding more frequently than adults. So adults, they can have less meals, but they're bigger. Whereas babies, they need smaller meals, but more frequently. And it's the same with tissue culture plants. So for that reason, it's really important to dose liquid fertilisers right from day one, because they are really hungry for nutrients, because they want to grow. They want to grow as fast as they can. So we give them, hopefully, what they need. And that's why one of the reasons I like to dose the fertilisers every day.
I always wait 3 weeks to do
To do fertiliser. Okay. My method isn't the only method that works.
Yeah.
So the great thing about Cryptocorini species is that most of them are very tolerant of shade. So you can keep them, you know, for instance, around here is going to be quite shaded, especially if and when we attach more plants around here. So it's a good idea to add, you know, your shade plants in the right areas where they're going to be shaded, right? So exactly the same method as planting before. This is going to get a lot taller, right? This is about 3 or 4 centimetres tall right now, and this will grow probably to anything up to sort of 20 centimetres. Depends a lot on the lighting levels. And the great thing about Cryptocorini is almost like a surprise plant because it will change in different conditions quite considerably depending on how much light you have, how much nutrients you have, circulation levels, all these things really make a difference to how a crypt grows. So it's one of the reasons I love it so much. But I just want to kind of talk about tissue culture a bit more actually, because it's a really good example of how good value for money. I've already planted half of the pot already, but if you see that, there's probably about 20 leaves there. Now, if you bought a standard Cryptocorini pot, you'll probably get about 20 leaves with that, and that's going to cost €7.50, something like that. Whereas with the tissue culture, you know, that is only kind of 1/5, 1/10 of the whole pot. So you're getting, you know, anything from 5 to 10 times more plant quantity with the tissue culture. They also last longer in the shop. You don't need to be kept. They're not obviously not kept under water. So actually, from a shop perspective, they're better. There's less overheads, less running costs, less wastage. I'm actually going to Tropica in a couple of weeks' time, and hopefully I'm going to do a video on the laboratory where they actually produce the plants, tissue culture plants. And Tropica are one of the only companies, plant companies, that produce their own tissue culture. Normally they go to third-party laboratories. So. I'll just go around the back so you can see. So are you all kind of regular customers of NADA already? Hands up. Good to hear. Amazing shop. I'm not just saying that because, you know, I'm working for them today, but I've never seen a shop that's so kind of, everywhere you look is just something really interesting. So new plant, a plant, an aquascape, everywhere is just really, really nice, really refreshing to see. Yeah, just to there. Any more questions, guys, while I'm doing this? No? You guys are shy than English people.
Told you.
That's okay. You fill in as dense as you can, as much as you can here, and then I'm going to use some different grips around here. Okay, so here we have. This is a normal potted plant, so you can see the difference, obviously, that versus the tissue culture. Much bigger, but actually nowhere near as many plants. But it's big, it's mature already, so it does have a advantage to give you that instant kind of impact. So to prepare this, we just simply remove the plastic pot from the bottom. Normally this is called rock wool or mineral wool. This is the kind of growth medium of the plant. That normally comes apart in two halves, like so. And then get rid of as much of the rock wool off the roots as you can. You can just rinse that in water to get it off really easily. And then again, we just divide that into individual portions, like so. So we get 3 or 4 portions out of that pot. And then the same technique before. Grab your portion, and then in we go. You don't have to push it all the way down. There's no real kind of, the roots aren't bothered as long as they're in contact with the soil. They can go quite far down, or just literally covering the roots. So this is a Tropica lucans, which will get a little bit taller, probably get to about 20 centimetres tall, and it will act as a nice kind of background around this area. I'm actually going to plant the rest of this Tropica lucans all around the background. Sometimes the roots will be a lot longer, depending on how long they've been in the nursery or in the retailer. And they can penetrate the pot. It can kind of come out like this. So sometimes you can actually cut the pot away and then just release the pot. It's a much easier way than trying to have a yank it out. Top tip for you. If the roots are quite long, you can trim them off, or you can just tear them, which is easier, to about 2 centimetres. That makes planting much easier, and it also stimulates new root growth as well. So again, get rid of the rock wool if you can. If there's a little bit left on there, that's no problem. And then just tear the roots off again to about 2 centimetres. Divide it up a bit, so 3 or 4 portions per pot. And there. So crypts, we call them Tropica, we call them crypts for short. Like I said, one of my favourite plants, really easy to grow, low light tolerance, slow, easy to maintain, but they often, in a new setup, will what we call crypt melt, so the actual leaves will disintegrate, and that is basically the plant adjusting from its out of water growth, which is what this is now. So this is being grown in the nurseries hydroponically. What that means is the roots are in nutrient-rich water circulating around, and then the leaves are exposed to the air, and that's how they grow in nature most of the time. When the flood seasons come, it gets covered in water, and then the leaves adjust to the underwater form. Now, what that means is the leaves become a lot more kind of floppy. Does that make sense? They're not so rigid. So the plant actually has to use quite a lot of energy making that transition, and doing that can actually cause the plant to kind of die off a little bit. But don't worry, with a crypt especially, as long as the roots are healthy, it will just come back. It will come back in a matter of a week or so. You'll see new growth, and then that new growth will be, nicely adapted to its underwater form. and away you go. Some people like to actually literally cut all the leaves off, and then rely on the healthy root growth, and then in a week or so you'll start to see brand new leaves. I actually like to keep it in there, and 90% of the time the leaves will gradually adjust and I don't get any quick melt. But occasionally I do, but I don't worry about it because I know it's going to come back, no problem. Does that make sense to everyone?
It also adds to the surprise of the crypt.
Yeah.
I had many crypts that I bought like this that turned out completely different.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the great thing about crypts, is that surprise. You know, you never know what you're going to get sometimes.
And you can rebalance the scape in color-wise.
Yeah. Yeah, and the great thing about crypts, there's so many varieties. I think there's probably about 20, 30 easily available varieties. There's actually hundreds in the wild. But you know, you can get ones from that big to this big, different leaf shapes, different colours. And yeah, I've done crypt only aquascapes before. In fact, my highest entry in the ILPLC, which was only 169. But it was crypt only. It was a 300 litre aquarium, and I only used cryptocorynes. I used 12 species and some wood. And yeah, it was my highest ever ranking. Anyone enter this year? Is anyone going to see anyone enter? I think Jan, did Jan enter? Yeah. You beat me, right?
I beat George.
Suspect team round. What did you get? 460?
Oh, I think 361.
Oh,
Something like this. 361. Or you were 380?
No, 486. Yeah. Embarrassing.
No, but the fun thing is, Marike, she sent just some pictures from the aquarium in the shop.
Oh, okay.
And because Jori Bowman at ADA Germany, he asked if Belgian people would also participate. And there was almost nobody from Belgium, so we just sent some pictures. So actually, without sending it,
Which tank was it?
probably the 60P when you come inside.
Yeah,
Actually
yeah.
the same setup as this one.
Wow. And that beat me.
Yeah, I don't understand.
I mean, either.
But I gave 10,000 yen, so.
Okay, good. We're planted. We're fully planted
The
into
live
this.
stream is stopped. I don't know why exactly. It's just suddenly.
It's just frozen, isn't it?
It's frozen.
It's so unreliable. I'm
Isn't it?
gonna have to do a new one.
You can't keep going.
Can I just borrow someone's phone? Sorry about this, guys. The live stream's frozen. We've got 250 people watching live, and apparently it's frozen.
Oh crap! And though. Back on. Oh. That's good. It's working.
It's working.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, guys. Technology, eh?
Cost you 15 viewers though.
Yeah. Okay, sorry about that minor interruption. Okay, so we've fully planted the soil. Just to refresh the plants we've used: Aleocaris mini, Helianthemum tenellum, Cryptocoryne Wenditii green, Tropica 1-2 grow, and Cryptocoryne lucans for the background. Now it's time to attach our rheophyte plants, or epiphyte plants. So these are plants that are attached to the wood and the rocks.
Sorry.
And the great thing about epiphyte plants, most of them are really, really easy. And they really help create an instant kind of mature look to the aquascape. And I think they're just great. So I've got a real kind of classic mixture here, which I love to use in my aquascapes at home and for clients as well. We've got Bucophilandra wavy green. Bucophilandra is a very popular, kind of trendy species. It's only been in the hobby, well known in the hobby for about 5 years or so. But it's very, very popular, and it's really good to see that there's nurseries now producing it properly, because A few years ago, the only way you could get it was to kind of buy it direct from people that were taking it from the forests in Borneo. The only place it actually grows in nature is in Borneo, and unfortunately some of the collectors were kind of almost destroying a lot of the habitats by over-collecting the Philandra. So it's really nice to see that the Tropica, Dunalay, Aquaflora, all the big kind of European plant suppliers are now producing it properly. So we also have some beautiful Anubias petites. This is one of the smaller varieties of Anubias. Anubias is super easy, actually thrives in the shade. It can get covered in algae if it does get too much light. We also have the bigger variety. This is the standard Anubias nana. Really kind of waxy, robust leaves. So you can even use it in aquariums with herbivorous fish, goldfish maybe, cichlids, etc. You can get away with growing Anubias in these sort of setups usually. Okay. So I'm just going to prep these super quick. So exactly the same method as before. Take out your label, remove the pot, break apart your rock wool, and then separate your plants. Like so. Put them there for now. And then same again. Got to help. Just want to prepare all of these for me. Just put them there and we finish. Okay, so now I'm actually quite a lazy aquascaper sometimes, and the old kind of technique, the kind of really sort of well written about and well known technique to attach plants like this is to tie them on with cotton thread or fishing line. Now I find it really awkward sometimes in a confined space to tie things. So if you've got the right kind of hardscape, all you have to do is literally push it in where there's a gap, like so. And then what will happen is over the next few weeks or so, those roots are going to crawl along the wood and the rocks, and they're going to really kind of self-attach and anchor themselves to the hardscape. So it's a really kind of easy way to attach your plants. Okay, same with the Anubias. Just find a nice place to poke it in. Yeah, you can use super glue as well, and we will use some super glue later for the mosses. So I'm just tearing the roots off again. That stimulates the new root growth. Just makes it easier to kind of poke in wherever you need. Now it's important with these plants that you've got the roots here, you can see the white roots, and then above the roots you've got what they call the rhizome. That's where the roots come out from and where the leaves grow from. It's really important that that rhizome isn't buried in the soil, because it will rot and then the plant will die. So you can get away with actually planting the roots, just the roots, as long as the rhizome is exposed to the water. But often I would like to kind of make sure the whole plant is, you know, in the water and not in the soil. In fact, I'm not going to put that there because that's going to get algae really quickly and there's so much light. This is a good example of how to use super glue. So this is commonly available super glue. I like the gel type. There are, you know, aquarium specific super glues, but they're all kind of based on a chemical called cyanacrylite. Hopefully it's not dried up. So if I just offer a tiny little blob just in this crack here. No, it's all dried up.
You have to open it. You have to first turn it the other way around.
There we go, it's coming out now.
It's a new tub there, isn't there? It's all dried up. So super glue's been popular for a few years now. I think it got popular to start with in the marine hobby and the reef keeping hobby. And then aquascapers realised they could use it in their planted tanks. So just a bit there, you don't need much. And it's important to try to use as little as possible and make sure it's not visible because it turns bright white underwater. So we use a little bit down here as well.
Can you use with gloss too?
Yes, yeah, I will be later. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. No, but super glue's, yeah, you can use it in anything underwater. It's very safe. It's really easy to use. Yeah. No, not at all. Yes, really strong. Yeah.
George, can you also use it on wet woods?
Yes. Yeah, you can use it on wood. You can use it anywhere you would use it in, you know, in everyday life. You can use it in the aquarium. It's super safe, really easy to use. In fact, we'll leave those there for now, and then we're going to. One of my favourite plants of all time, another one of my favourites. Microsorum trident, or trident fern. It's quite a new, relatively new microsorum to the hobby. And they call it trident because the leaf shape has 3 prongs. So that's why it's called trident. Beautiful plant. Compare it the same way as before. Now, trident fern is one of the more demanding microsorums, although it's still regarded as an easy plant, but it definitely benefits from a little bit more light and definitely from CO2 as well. We'll wedge that in there. Now microsoil does dry out quite quickly, and if it dries out too much it will die. So we need to give that mist. Sam's going to give you that. And we have another pot here. You can also, Tropica also supply what they call aqua decor, which is the plant's already growing on a piece of wood or a piece of lava rock. And that's a really nice, easy way to instantly add, a focal point or a feature for your aquascape. Okay, so we're just missing just a little bit of a gap here, so I'm just going to get some more crypts for there. So this is a good example of sometimes you need to do a little plant prep. So you can see these yellowing leaves here. If we just remove those before we plant, if we don't remove those, then they're going to kind of struggle in the aquarium. The plant's going to use loads of energy trying to repair those leaves, whereas that energy is better used growing new leaves. So that's why we remove them. And you can see here I was talking about how the roots sometimes penetrate the pot. So you can try to remove it, but it's going to be quite tricky. So what I like to do is either cut the pot away, or you could just rip those roots. That's going to stimulate new root growth, and hopefully that will come out relatively easily. So this is Cryptocorini. Anyone know? Any crypt?
Come on guys, if you don't know this one.
Maybe a Tropica version?
We did it, guess. Yeah. Sure. Yes. When did I agree? Apparently. I don't know. It's not label.
YouTube agrees though. White
Yeah.
to green.
Okay, good. So this is just to give you a compare and contrast, this is the Wendtii green in the pot, and then if you get a close-up of this, the small one here, where my finger is, this is the tissue culture. So you can see the difference in size. These leaves have adapted to underwater growth because they've been grown in tissue culture. So eventually these you can see how different the leaf shape is. These leaf shape will get similar to this, but obviously these are actually going to grow to kind of this sort of size. So just give you an idea of how tissue culture and pots of the same species are really quite different. So just tearing the roots off again. You can use, I always used to use scissors, and I used to think if I tore the roots it would damage them, but it doesn't have any effect. I've been doing it for years now. So this empty area here, I'm very good. Now there's wood. Now there's wood there. That's awkward. That's fine. Okay. Good. Here's a few for helping me. Okay. Time for another spray. We don't want that microsoil film to dry out. Okay, so that's the planting complete. Hardscape's done, soil's in, Aquascape's almost there. So now it's just time to fill up the water. I'll have a tidy up in a minute. we have a bucket, Jan?
A bucket. Good question. We have a
Watering cap.
yeah.
Okay, I've got a story time with George now. Does anyone recognise this? Hands up. Hey. Hashtag Red Collinver. So I had this since day one of fish keeping. I realised that when I poured water into an aquascape, so let's pretend I'm just going to pour that in there straight away. Do you know what's going to happen, right? Yeah. So we use this, and it just spreads the water out nicely, and it just stops the water from getting disturbed. There's loads of other techniques you can use. Some people will use like plastic bags or newspaper, or lay it over everything and then pour things in slowly. But I just find this is a really easy method that I've actually become quite attached to this because I've had it like 15 years. I've done almost every single aquascape with it. So it's been to America with me, it's been all over Europe, and I love it.
It's a real trademark.
It is. I've really got, you got the t-shirt?
Yeah, there.
Yeah.
Drying.
So I've even got my own branded t-shirts. So you can see the red column there, keep on scaping. I always say keep on scaping at the end of all my workshops and videos. They are available to buy. If you go onto mosscotton.com/George, you can buy your own keep on scaping t-shirt.
Small question. Who is thirsty?
There you go.
You want the glass, George?
I'll have one after finish.
Otherwise, you're gonna miss your avocado.
Has anyone got one?
Yeah.
Hey! Representing England. So it's important that we fill up as slowly as practical. If I was at home, I would spend maybe an hour or so doing it. We haven't got that time today. So it might go a little bit cloudy, the water, but hopefully it won't be too bad. Any questions while I'm doing this?
Yeah, is it easier way to cut the grass?
Easier way to
easier-
cut
yeah.
when you're maintaining the
Yeah.
grass. Have you seen the beard trimmer video?
Yeah,
Jan,
I thought,
shut it
I
down.
always thought I was an idiot
Soms
doing
nooit
it like
zo
that.
Ja, ja.
But then you showed a movie about it,
Yeah.
and I felt normal for a moment.
Yeah. I haven't done it myself, but yeah, you can use a beard trimmer.
Oh no, I mean the trimming with the hose on.
Oh, that, yeah, that's for moss. Yeah, you can have to do moss. In fact, I would put moss in, yeah.
But using a beard trimmer.
Yeah, people use beard trimmer. Yeah, there's a video, it went viral online. Okay, I've forgotten to put the moss on, which is a bit embarrassing, so I do apologise. I will do that now. I'll finish this watering can. And it's super quick. We just use a little bit of super glue, a little portion of the moss, and then just. How's the water? Is it looking quite clear, the water? See that? How clear is the water?
It's okay.
Someone's asking if you don't have to treat the water before you put it in.
So I don't treat the water, no.
Yep.
I dechlorinate the water if there's livestock in there, but in a brand new aquarium, the chlorine's not going to do the plants any harm. It's only normally a very small level, so I don't normally bother treating the water. Okay, so we're just going to glue some moss on now. That's quite clear actually. That's good. Okay, just spray that burn again, just to keep it drying out. Okay, so where's my super glue? Moss. So I'm going to go for some Christmas moss. It's called Christmas moss because it looks like little tiny Christmas trees. This is the tissue culture again from Tropica, the ones they grow. Now this is the jelly that we talked about earlier. It's not grown in the liquid. We've got the jelly, which is a little bit more tricky to prepare. Let's go around this way. So we can hopefully get rid of most of it just with our fingers. And then again, just give it a gentle massage under the water. And then what I'm going to do is, am I in your way here? So we've got a big clump there, and let's separate that into, say, 6-10 portions.
Whoops. Sorry, guys. Someone's getting motion sickness because of this game.
Oh, okay. Is it?
Could you fix it?
You turned it off? Yeah, turned it off. That's right.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Cool, thanks mate. So, really easy, just gently split it up.
Fuck. First time camera operator. Yes, I am. Sorry.
Well, I appreciate your help, mate. I'm sure the guys watching appreciate it. Okay, so get our portion of moss. Now, two options. You can put a little bit of glue on the moss itself, or you can put a bit of it on the wood. I'm actually going to put some on the moss, just a tiny little dot underneath, like so. And then we offer that up to the piece of wood which we want to cover. So let's do a bit here. And then just repeat the process. The moss is wet already, that's no problem. The glue will still dry. Put a bit on here.
Your battery's low, I think.
On the camera?
No, you popped.
No, you accidentally touching it.
Just go. It's weird.
Oh, it is low.
Yeah, it is low.
Okay. Oh, right, just do it like that.
That'll be fine. There you go.
I can't believe it's run out of battery. It's got 12-hour battery life. Right. Okay. Same again, little blob of glue. And then a really cool thing, if you kind of put the moss on the threshold where the water's going to be, eventually the moss will creep up the wood and look really, really cool. And the moss is just a really nice way to soften the hardscape. It gives it a really nice natural kind of mature appearance, like an ancient sort of forest appearance. Just put a bit on the stone as well.
How do you get the mousse, because it doesn't go up, it goes down and then it's in your stick and then I'm like picking it up.
Yeah. So when you trim it, there's a video that I've done where you attach. I'll show you. Use these scissors, okay, and then you attach a small tube, like a air hose tube, and then you siphon, and then you cut at the same time. The moss goes through the tube and out. So when you're cutting, you get stops it.
And you hope there's not a shrimp getting into the tube.
Yeah, yeah, just have to be careful, it's fine.
So that's
Or that you don't suck your moss.
Hmm?
Or that you don't suck up your moss.
yeah, I tried it one time.
Yeah, it's
Most was gone.
Yeah, just have to be careful. Use a very small diameter hose so you have much more control. So like an air like 6 millimeters or 9 millimeters. Yeah.
I'm still one of those old school who ties it with cotton.
Okay.
But the cotton goes away after 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And then the moss is slightly attached.
Okay.
And then that trigger usually ends up with the moss loosening up and having moss everywhere.
Okay. Right, last bit. Just here. So I've deliberately put this kind of half in, half out of the water. That's going to hopefully creep up the wood and look really great. Okay. Right.
Looking good, bro. Yep. Okay, nearly there, guys. Just filling up with water. Then we'll have a break, and then we'll come back and we'll do a bio-pod run. Right. So just got the one floater by the look at this. That's pretty good. Pop that back in.
People are acknowledging you love your red colander.
Oh, excellent. Hashtag red colander, I'm going to start using it. I thought about starting my own Instagram account for my red colander.
Right.
So if you guys that are watching right now, you can watch this again if you wanted, if you really wanted to, on YouTube. It's being live streamed right now, and the video will be available to watch afterwards forever. So you can, if there's some stuff that I've talked about that you weren't quite sure of and you want to watch it again. The floater. This is what happens when the super glue dries underwater. It goes like this white colour. You could hopefully just scrape it off with your nails. It's non-toxic, so it's not a problem. It's just aesthetically, it doesn't look very nice.
Can you still glue plants when there's already water?
Ideally, you need to do it dry or moist. Yeah, you might be able to underwater, but it's better to drain the tank down, glue it, and then fill it up again. Take this wood float though.
Yeah.
Yep.
about the lighting. A lot of people now measure their pH level, like the volume of light
Yeah.
you give. Is it actually, I would say, if you have too low light, not enough light,
Yeah.
what are the minimum levels you need for example, a 40 centimeter high tank? Do you know it by heart, or is it like
No. Ideally, you have a what you call a PAR meter, which measures photosynthetic active radiation. So that's actually the amount of light that plants can use. They're expensive. I normally go for easy plants, and talking LEDs now, around about 1/4 watt per litre is normally fine. This is 45 watts and a 60 litre, so it's nearly, 1 watt per litre, so it's more than enough. In fact, ideally, you want to dim it down a little bit, I would say, for these plants. But it's just something you get with experience. Certainly don't deliberately have so much light that you're going to run into algae issues. Maybe buy a budget friendly. If you're a beginner, you want to buy a budget friendly light. But yeah, aim for about 0.25 to half a watt per litre LED light, that is. Most people use LEDs now. Fluorescents aren't quite as efficient. But yes, light measurements are quite a tricky subject. You just kind of have to go with, if you buy an all-in-one kit, then hopefully you would think the light would grow easy plants. If you want to grow difficult plants, you will probably have to upgrade the lighting. But the good thing about if you inject CO2 and have good fertilisers and a good soil, is actually you can get away with less light. Because the plants are, they're doing quite well because they've got everything else that's fine. And actually that's a really kind of good way to go. The less light you can get away with, the less likely you're going to get algae. So don't always assume that more light is best, for sure.
what is the biggest tank you've ever scaled?
10,000 litres. Yeah. It was in a shop in London a few years ago. And the smallest, half a litre. Okay guys, so that's the scape complete. We'll take a break there for half an hour or so. I need to have something to eat and drink, and then we'll come back and we'll do a biopod to ground.
Alright. It looks very well.
Thank you.
Nicely done.
Classic George Farmer style, that is.
Yeah.
But all relatively easy plants. The hardest part in there will be the mini hair grass. We've had a CO2 system. Eventually I'd like to upgrade that to a bigger circulator. That's not going to last. That's probably going to last 2 or 3 weeks on this sort of size tank. Add a liquid fertiliser every day. Big water changes for the first couple of weeks. Probably change half of the water 2 or 3 times a week for the first 2 to 3 weeks, and then gradually go down to 150% water change once a week. Filtration. An external canister filter, you're looking at between 5 and 10 times turnover. Ideally, the more the merrier, but you don't want to obviously get in the plants kind of, blowing around too much. But yeah, that's it. Just going to do a switch to YouTube. Thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate you watching. Give a thumbs up if you enjoyed that. Keep on skating. Take care. Cheerio.